As a starting point, let's take a moment to look at how the world approaches the death penalty today. We can see that many countries have moved away from it, while others still maintain it. These numbers don't give us answers by themselves, but they do help us understand the direction the world has been moving. Think of this slide simply as a map that frames our discussion, rather than something we need to judge right away. Here we can see the countries that still carry out executions. Most of them are concentrated in Asia and the Middle East, though not exclusively. We'll talk about their reasons later. But for now, it's enough to recognize that the death penalty is not just a historical concept. It is something that continues to operate in the present. This reality alone already raises several questions worth exploring together. Next, we have countries that still have the death penalty in their laws, but have not executed anyone for many years. These countries sit in an interesting middle ground, neither fully abolitionist nor fully retentionist. Their situation often reflects political choices, social pressures, or even symbolic considerations. As we move forward, it may be helpful to keep this in-between space in mind. These are the countries that have abolished the death penalty for all crimes. It's notable that Europe and the Americas have led this movement, while other regions have followed at different speeds. Some countries have even shifted from active execution to full abolition within a short span of time. Seeing this kind of change invites us to think about what drives societies to redefine their systems of punishment. One of the strongest reasons cited for abolition is the risk of executing an innocent person. Unfortunately, history gives us several real examples of wrongful convictions, including among those sentenced to death. And because execution is irreversible, this risk becomes more than a legal issue. It becomes an ethical dilemma. It raises a simple but profound question: how much uncertainty are we willing to accept in a justice system? Another major factor is the modern understanding of human rights. Many countries have come to see state executions as inconsistent with human dignity. International treaties and regional bodies reflect this evolving perspective. This slide invites us to think about how societies reinterpret long-standing institutions as their values change over time. We often hear that the death penalty prevents crime, but large-scale studies haven't found clear evidence that it deters serious crimes more effectively than other severe punishments. This is one of the most contested points in the debate, but also one of the most thought-provoking. It encourages us to ask what truly influences human behavior and what role punishment should play. Many abolitionist countries rely on life imprisonment or long sentences to ensure public safety. Meanwhile, criminal justice systems around the world have shifted from a focus on retribution to broader ideas like prevention and rehabilitation. Reflecting on these trends, we might ask how punishment should function in modern societies, and what outcomes we ultimately hope to achieve. For several countries, abolition came alongside democratization or political reform. Ending the death penalty became part of distancing society from past abuses of state power. International expectations also play a role, as countries increasingly consider how they are perceived on human rights. This evolution shows how punishment is not only a legal tool, but also a symbolic one. Now let's look at why some countries continue to use the death penalty. The first common argument is that it deters severe crimes, especially drug trafficking, terrorism, or violent offenses. Whether or not the effect is proven, the belief itself remains influential. It raises questions about how societies try to manage fear and protect themselves from harm. Another reason is rooted in the idea of retribution, that those who commit the most serious crimes deserve the harshest punishment. In many places, this belief is strongly tied to emotions surrounding justice and loss. Rather than judging it, we might simply acknowledge that societies often grapple with deep feelings when defining justice. In some states, the death penalty is justified as a tool for maintaining national security or public order. It is applied to crimes like terrorism or treason, where governments feel a need to demonstrate strong responses. This invites broader reflection about the balance between state authority and individual rights, and where societies choose to draw that line. Here, cultural and religious contexts play a significant role. In some countries, harsh punishments are embedded in long-standing legal or moral traditions. When this happens, the death penalty becomes not just a legal question, but part of a cultural identity. This complexity reminds us that legal reform often intersects with deeply rooted beliefs. Public opinion is another major factor. In certain countries, the majority of citizens still support capital punishment, which makes abolition politically difficult. This shows us that criminal justice policy doesn't evolve in a vacuum. It is shaped by emotions, history, and social expectations. It reminds us that change, when it happens, often requires both political will and public trust. Countries in this category keep the death penalty in their legal codes, but haven't executed anyone for many years. This position can be seen as a transitional state, neither fully committed to abolition nor to use. It's a subtle stance that reflects uncertainty, compromise, or caution. Many of these states prefer to move slowly rather than change the law abruptly. Public opinion, political sensitivities, or fear of backlash often shape this approach. It's a reminder that policymaking is not always decisive. It can also be incremental and adaptive. Some countries keep the death penalty as a symbolic last resort, a tool meant only for extreme or hypothetical situations, even if they never intend to use it. Removing it from the law can feel risky or unnecessary. This shows us how laws sometimes serve symbolic functions beyond their practical application. Another explanation is simple institutional inertia. Legal systems are complex, and sometimes outdated provisions remain simply because there is no urgent push to revise them. This reminds us that legal change often requires sustained momentum, and in its absence, old systems can linger quietly. Finally, some countries find themselves balancing international expectations for abolition with domestic demands for harsh punishment. Maintaining the death penalty on paper becomes a compromise between these conflicting pressures. It's an example of how criminal justice policy can be shaped by forces both inside and outside a country's borders. Looking across all of these perspectives, it becomes clear that the death penalty is not just a legal issue. It sits at the crossroads of politics, emotion, culture, security, and human rights. Rather than reaching a quick conclusion, I hope this overview encourages us to reflect on the broader questions behind the debate. What is justice? How should societies respond to harm? And what role should the state play in shaping life and death? These are not easy questions, but they are meaningful ones worth considering together.